Oh dear.
Hello, Canada.
The worst is when you forget one of the crap.
Yep.
This full screen.
The other day I had a meeting with Lighthouse. I'm trying to like bridge the gap with like autism and like law enforcement. A lot of the stuff we look for is how they're funding themselves. Those are like indicators from someone like you. So I'm trying to have this program and people came in for me and I was out doing something else and just totally forgot. So they reached out and like, we don't see your car. Oh, I have my car still repaired. They're ready. So I called the service. I'm like, hey, I totally forgot about a meeting.
I missed one with Chris, a resident, the other day because I was chasing a kid around the building.
Oh, really?
And then just completely forgot that I was supposed to be.
Hey, how's it going? Hey Rob, how are you?
Howdy.
How's it going?
Jordan, how are you?
Pretty good.
You have a spill-proof cap on this week?
I'm not even playing that. Someone did that yesterday at the meeting too.
See?
But it wasn't me.
It wasn't you.
It's the room.
Is this the same one you handed out?
Yes.
Wait for?
Yes.
That'll be 50 cents, please.
I think so.
They got all the TVs working, they don't need me for.
Oh, I did,
huh?
man. Yeah, proud of me.
You did that once?
Yeah.
4 years.
I know.
4 years, yeah.
They can do it?
Well, I
doing,
thought it
Jordan?
used
How
to
are
be
you?
one remote kind of worked everywhere. I feel like it changed, because now I feel like it's one for each TV.
It's.
Or as it comes and goes.
Yeah, sometimes with the 75, it'll work off one remote, other times it gets a bit hinky and it wants you to use one or the other, but yeah.
We saved you a seat right in front of us, Chris. If you want, we'll drag one over. We'll roll it.
Over there, that's a special spot.
It is.
Yeah, I don't know. Gotta get on camera, yeah.
That's the goal. We have to find out
Yeah,
the
get
angle.
about, where's the angle, get out over
Camera's
here.
here, so we're.
Problem is, you cough, you don't actually have to, this microphone's very sensitive, you gurgle with your water, it'll pick it up,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, if I push it in, it's.
How's everything going?
Busy, but good.
Can you guys hear me?
We can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm sick. Sorry, I didn't want to get you guys all sick.
Oh, thank you, appreciate it.
Let me turn that down a little bit for you, that's a little, yeah. That'll wake you up. Okay.
Hey, Anna, how are you?
Good, how are you? We're doing good.
Yeah, I look pretty good on television.
This is 10 seasons
No,
ago.
it's good, it takes 20 years and 20 pounds off, yeah.
I look pretty good, don't you think?
Season 1.
It's a season 1 reboot.
I did.
I'm only here to keep an eye on Chris. It's the
Oh,
only one that has to
Have
be
a
afraid.
town meeting in here?
you're gonna get me back for that invasive species comment.
Yes,
No,
yep.
you Hendricken guys never
Yes,
forget, yeah.
best school in Rhode Island.
Andrew.
No, Portsmouth Abbey.
Oh,
We'll debate that one, but I got a rep for my daughters.
You guys even have a football team there? Come on.
Hey, what about Cumberland High School?
Yeah,
I got
okay,
nothing bad
let's
to
get
say. I
back
don't know
to
what
it,
they
yeah,
did
forget
anymore.
about that, yeah, it's.
I agree with your invasive species comment though.
Yeah, thank you.
We don't need
Yeah,
a, we
you're
need a
another-
wall around Connecticut.
Yeah, he's another one from that's moved over from the ocean.
Hey, I
state.
escaped in 91, so.
Like hermit
Yeah,
crabs, they
that's
sneak over the
Yes.
border, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Look at the
Most
last
all
one.
eastern Connecticut, all state police, it's all Rhode Island and Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Really no Connecticut.
And it says
Yeah,
schools.
yeah, like I told you before, actually, a few of my daughter's teachers are working for Hendricken guys, yeah.
I won't
Hendricken
fight.
always had a good football team.
Yes, I'm supposed
80s.
to have these too.
Chris, the
I
same
graduated a few
pictures
years
are the
after
same
'01. I played baseball with like
as
Rocco and
what's
played
handed
football
out
there.
earlier?
I graduated high school in
Yeah,
'89, a lot younger and a lot more athletic, I have a father figure.
Yeah, yeah, we
My
made
wife
that
does a
adjustment
college
that
ad,
you guys voted on last week, but nothing, everybody's
Yeah.
changing it on CIP, so that's all the same.
Well, I'm gonna take another one.
No.
Do you have many people this, Saturday?
Oh, Earth Day cleanup? I don't know, the Lions run that, and it probably won't be that good a turnout because, rain's predicted, yeah, but they do it rain or shine. But they usually-
Rain's coming through on
Yeah, they
Saturday.
usually get a pretty good turnout though.
Might be nice.
I'll come in and I'll sign up to clean up Kitty Road again like I do every year, I walk up and down as much as I
It was
feel like
funny,
it.
the neighbor has taken to walking
Hopefully not his road.
and Dan walks.
I was coming down there.
They always schedule it on opening day for soccer and baseball, and I'm like,
Yeah, it's coming down.
So he
like,
goes out and-
some communication across town would be great because every single family is at the field on Saturday. Like,
And my boys would love it, they would love to walk around town.
you wonder why your turnout is low. Every single family in town is at sports.
Actually,
They at 11, Cade at 12:30, Jackson at 3, so we're just gonna stay there basically.
Yeah, and those, you get.
Live out of the concessions.
This was me
Years
coming
ago,
over
my
on
daughter
Rocks.
and I
Good to
forget
see you
what
Over the crest, going to down the.
We're at a basketball tournament this weekend,
Oh, yeah.
waiting to get the schedule to see if it's best to just stay overnight or not.
Found like $20 on the road.
Not in Connecticut, I presume, or
Spend it on
no?
To be honest, it looked like
Boston area?
even behind this way, like.
Because the job used to get on my.
And that travel team that landed on
Some
there.
parking
It's
like-
like-
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to that.
Candy, but they came back.
I'm not looking forward to travel.
Funny, 'cause background is a travel development.
Yeah, I'm right about there, Jackson just turned 8, so it's like that,
Someone doing this.
It's fun.
yeah.
It's
Stuff
expensive.
like that, it is.
That's only gonna go until he's like 22 and out of college, right? So,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
You can reclassify like 5 times, it'll be fine.
7:00.
That's the
Let's
latest.
call this regular meeting of the Canterbury Board of Finance to order. Established quorum, we got Mike, we got Rob, Joy is on Zoom. Matt, Rob, Mike, I don't know. Joy's on Zoom, we'll ask Jeanette please to sit, 5 of us tonight. I don't know, that other guy. We have approval of minutes, they got out this morning or afternoon. What's that?
Get that.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have some minutes to approve. Everybody get those?
I cross-referenced them with my notes and they are accurate as presented.
That is the gold standard, so thank you. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes as
I make a
presented?
motion that we accept the minutes
Jeanette?
of April 16th as presented in draft form.
Jeanette, anyone with a second?
I'll second.
Matt, any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Okay. Got some correspondence. Chris is in here. He did
He
forward
just
me.
stepped up.
It's okay. He did forward me an email from the auditors. You guys saw this? I'll just point out, it's the unassigned balance line here, 336 something. Can I zoom in on that? 3369532. We'll see where it plugs in. I did update the online sheet, worksheet. But I think we had 2.8 as an approximation, something like that. Chris, I'm just looking at this, unassigned fund balance, 3.36.
Right.
9532. Do you want to comment on that, or is?
No, you'll notice it's about 500,000 down from where it was last year, but that's gonna take.
That's
into-
right. The
That's
whole
gonna
thing
take
is
into
that.
consideration the, security grant.
That's right.
So you could add on to this, all things being perfect, that the state will reimburse us before the end of this fiscal year. You could add on to this our reimbursement amount, which I think Chris, B could probably answer for us what that would be. Or you could go with the 3.3 unassigned fund balance, which according to the auditors is pretty close.
Yeah.
What's the security grant? Is that?
We
like
can look at it in the
264
worksheet.
or something?
We had appropriated 500 something,
500 and something, yeah.
and then that'll was it all of it, or was it some portion of it to get reimbursed?
Reimburses a portion.
It's a portion.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it'd be about 300,000 reimbursement or
Yeah, I
so.
think between the two, it's a little over 300,000.
So it may be something to keep in mind as a
Yeah.
consideration.
Yeah, but this number is better than the figure that we just kind of spitballed last week. I think it's $1 million above what we were looking at when you were doing your numbers
We
last
had something like
week.
2.8,
Yeah,
so it's
2 point
not quite,
something,
not
yeah.
quite $1 million, about $500,000 higher than what we had. Any questions on that? So we'll use that number. Then the item under old unfinished business is to discuss and finalize the budget for the public hearing. Public hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, next Tuesday. That notice went out yesterday, or started to run yesterday. And then we have a meeting, so we have 2 meetings next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. Let me bring up the worksheet and try to share this. Let's log in. And then we have some questions on we want to confirm some numbers, and we have some questions on the revenue side that we may want to look at and see if we want to make any adjustments there. Let me share here. I will try to zoom. So this was updated a couple days ago. We've got the governor's budget proposal. We've got updated budgets, including the changes we made last week. We've got I say final grand list, but it's the final before the Board of Assessment Appeals. And then we've got an updated unreserved fund balance from the auditor. Town government 3.417.
Can you enlarge that any?
Let's see. Oh boy.
That,
I'm gonna try. I'm kind of in between when I hit
That
the
helps.
buttons. Let me see.
That helped a little bit.
And then I gotta get rid of this folder, this thing. Okay, so is that a little bit better? I don't know if you'd rather see both columns or you'd rather see the difference. It's a little hard to, can't do all.
no, we can just see what we're working with.
Okay, so it's this column here.
Okay, thank you.
So,
One column below that.
do you mean this one?
Yeah.
I try, but
No, okay.
I don't know
Stuff
because
is
it's
hidden.
like grouped.
Yeah, it has
and
stuff's hidden. Okay, never mind.
I don't, yeah. So, all right, so 3.417, 505 to 13,333, these are the numbers that we've seen before. This is the total with our total revenue, which is based on essentially a flat revenue on the tax side. This is the difference. That's, a bigger, fairly big jump of what we're pulling from the unreserved versus last year. And then I did put in the 336,953.2 from the auditors as the unreserved. This is the additional appropriation last year, that when they complete this year's audit will come out, but then get put back a little bit, 300,000 or so. So we may want to consider that, but I'm not gonna change this number. We'll just have to we'll consider it. Hold on one second. Let me make sure. Okay. I want to validate what I'm doing here. Okay, I guess it changed this, right? So I put in a higher number and it changes the net fund balance, okay? So we put in the unreserved amount, we subtract off a 10% figure, and then we subtract off the amount that we're using to pay down the mill rate, and we get a slightly negative number, 189. Last year, when we did that same math, we were left with 329. So that might be a better place to sit. Might be a better place to sit a little bit positive rather than a little bit negative. In the past several years, we really haven't gone negative with this number. That would be going below 10% for cash flow. But as Chris was saying, the security grants are, say, 300,000. That would put us above that,
We'll put you
but we've not really ever done that type of thing when we look at these
Right, we're
budgets.
banking on that money coming in, and the state's usually pretty good about that, and the 3.3 figure from the auditors, Mike Van Deventer said that number gives us 19%, and the 10% is.
Cash flow
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah,
The
so
whole
it puts
number,
us at-
wait,
yeah, it's 19%,
but that's the whole thing.
the whole thing, yeah.
Got it. So we're looking at unreserved as a,
Yeah, the unreserved puts us at 19%,
is that right?
yeah.
Oh, right, because we're gonna hold back 10%,
Right,
and then we're using, it looks like a little bit more than that.
right.
Okay. All right, let me just pause there for maybe some comments from the board, comments or questions.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Joy?
Yeah, so I thought the reimbursement was about 470,000 from the state for the security grant.
Chris B., can you speak to that?
Yeah, it may be. It may be. There's two separate grants. I don't know that exact number.
All right.
Yep.
Does your accountant know?
I don't have it with me now.
It's our accounts payable. She has all that information.
I mean, if we're certain we're gonna get it, we should add it back.
If we're certain what, we should do what? Add it in?
Sorry. If we're certain we're gonna get the money, we should add it back. Because the only way to get not negative is to adjust the mill rate, right?
There are
No, you can do cuts, Joy.
levers.
Well, yeah, sorry.
on the
Assuming we,
expense side. Right.
right.
Yeah, there's the expenses
It's not in our
and the
Google
revenue
Drive?
side. Let me,
Our Google Drive.
I mean, we could imagine making cuts to these
The
budgets.
presentation that Garrett did.
Let me give you an alternate imagination. By looking at well, of course, we do have some revenues maybe we want to solidify, at least close questions
Or
on.
Garrett probably remembers.
So it's this,
She was
is
working
this
on it
sheet,
today.
the revenue side, we highlighted a few, but if you look at what we're closing, we could double these numbers or half them, and it really doesn't have a big effect. So pilot, I think we brought that off of the CCM sheet.
Yeah.
There was a question about telephone access, special education, I think that's the number you guys provided, 32,000.
Yeah.
And then Homeland Security grant. I mean, add all that up and you're, what is that, maybe 50 grand. So if we halved it or doubled it, it changes that amount, doesn't close the gap. Okay.
Right, and I think, just for the sake of argument and discussion, with the budget that's being proposed, by the House and Senate, they're gonna hold education harmless.
You think they're gonna add that
Yeah,
back?
so that's what, but it still has to now go through the process. And they're not gonna know that till June 6th, thereabouts, so I hate to say that we will be held harmless, in terms of that cut for ECS. Past practice has been that we have been, but you know, what's the old adage? You know, future performance is not dependent upon past performance. But I would think that in the perfect world, that 125,771 does come back.
Yeah.
But there's still some unknown with that.
But we
And-
went through this last year when we were toying with the auditor's
Yeah,
number and everything,
totally.
and state numbers. We said we'd go with whatever.
We're not
number
gonna,
we
yeah,
have.
we're not
Yeah.
gonna change it.
Yeah.
However, using that same, if we kind of pre-earmark returns on the grant and returns on ECS, it does correct this number.
Oh, it brings it right up to.
But the
yeah,
worksheet doesn't reflect that.
Yeah,
And I'm not sure we wanna bake it into the worksheet. I think
I would rather not bake it into the worksheet because we've always said that we're gonna build a budget based on the.
there's
numbers
nowhere to
that we-
put it, I'll be honest, because the only thing we could do is fudge numbers, and we're not gonna fudge
Well,
numbers.
you could.
We'd add a row or something that says potential returns or additions from the state or something.
But yeah, I don't think we should even address that because it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I do. So here's the story I wanna tell, right? This is revenue, year on year, total tax revenue, with the grand list adjusted and the mill rate assumed, well, last year 23, this year 16.55. I want to see what this looks like if we do a 3%, say inflation adjusted revenue as a point of visibility and discussion. What does that look like? What does that mill rate look like if we plug in a number here that brings our total revenue up about 3%? Does anybody want to guess?
No.
17 something, 17.1, let's see. So there's 3.38. If we do 17, it's a little bit under, so maybe 17.05, 3.08. All right, which is an additional $321,000 in revenue, which if we go back to the sheet, also closes that gap.
I really don't wanna raise anybody's taxes.
I agree with you, Matt. And I also don't want to deplete and go near zero in anticipation of maybe we get, maybe we don't, our extra money coming in. Because if the federal government goes through with what they're saying in the education department, we could lose our food, we could lose,
I'm gonna put this back, just,
we could also lose our teachers that are in the school. And then we come to the moral dilemma of, we need the money to be able to replace the essentials if they came back to us.
But this is all hypotheticals.
That is true. That is true. But the hypotheticals that I've seen in the past have all come to fruition. So I think if we turn a blind eye to possibilities, we're not doing ourselves a
how do
service.
you see us preparing for that?
Well, I'm saying that I don't want to deplete our reserves
Sure.
down to nothing in anticipation, if we do need something to draw from, to cover something that happens to get cut. Does that make sense, Matt?
Yeah, I
Yes.
understand.
That makes sense.
And I agree with not raising people's taxes, because the statement was made that, well, they went up cost of living, everything costs more, except that it costs more for the people as well that are paying those taxes. And that's a double burden for them.
So to keep the mill rate, what you figured out before was 16.5.
5.5, which was
We're 190,000 short.
Yes.
So what figures are we not sure on? To your point, a lot of these, we have questions, we went through a lot of these where, do we know our final revenue for Natalie?
we
You know, all
had,
that, what is that number?
I mean, those are shown in the unreserved, the audited fund balance. That's where that comes out of. But we did have a report from here, was it last week or the week before?
We plugged that in here, right?
No, we don't. That comes out in the audited now. We see that basically trailing a year.
I told Natalie to join in, or she said she was gonna join in on Zoom today. Is she floating out there?
Let me make sure she's not.
No.
That was.
She
this is
forgot.
a note she put. But that, anything that we might consider that's not part of the audit would be like the state reimbursement or the ECS grant, hold harmless, or over collection, which is,
These are the rates she was talking
But she said she's already, what number did we put in here? 10,444?
that's last year's number. So if we look, see the adopted 24-25, we put in 10,444,
Right.
and she's collected 10,5,
She already
whatever.
collected 10,5.
But see, that would come out in the audit
And that's
for
a year past.
the close of the next year, we'd see it this time next year.
Oh, okay.
today.
I see,
It's
okay.
coming back.
Which we certainly could consider, but she's over collected, no doubt, on the revenue for this year, which is the current audit as well.
Is that audit finished?
I think it's close.
What's that?
Yeah.
The audit is not quite done, but I think it's close.
School
Yeah,
security.
I think the last letter said that.
So, yes, I mean, there are, I guess, what are our non-negotiables? Can this number stay there?
But
Can
they
this number stay negative?
appropriated the full amount that it would cost with that
I'd rather not
reimbursement.
see it negative.
Remember last year?
Yeah, I mean,
And I'll
I'd
put it
rather,
out there,
I'd rather it not stay negative as well.
yeah, I mean, we went out there and Chris cut $100,000 from his budget as we.
He didn't. We
Well-
cut the 100,000 from his
well,
budget.
He acquiesced to the $100,000.
He has no,
He has no choice.
he doesn't get to choose. It's not his
And-
choice.
I feel that all components in this town have to bear some of the responsibility of meeting in the middle.
And you'd made a motion of 100,000 cut to EDU.
How much
Last-
did we
I
cut
did.
from?
Would you, is that something you would stand for
Yeah.
again this week?
Well, let's go through our numbers. I'm gonna make motions, but I wanna go through
Okay,
our
so
numbers
there's
to
our-
see what.
But
we're-
let's say you did
Contribution.
100, that makes this number negative 89.
Right,
So where would we find it?
So it's not enough. If it's not negotiable, then that number's negative.
okay, then it would be
So we're-
$200,000.
So you're prepared to make a motion
I
for
am.
200,000?
I
We're
am.
not quite there yet, I'm just,
I know,
we're just,
yeah, I am prepared to do that.
Okay.
Because they're going up 400 and something, so, yeah.
Okay, any other solutions on, the ideas people have? I mean, frankly, I would say any adjustments to revenue is hand waving.
Yeah.
Because, let's say we made this number $211,000. We can make it whatever we want. It doesn't really solve the problem. And if we're wrong, it's gonna come out in the audit anyway.
But isn't pilot one that we?
Yes, that one, in
that's
fact, I
locked in.
believe is
Yeah,
straight off of the
that's
CCM
a-
sheet.
That's a state give.
Right.
The school security reimbursement should be $350,180, so $350,180.
351, what?
180.
I think there were actually, I didn't scroll down, but there were some additional revenue lines down here. Planning and zoning, ad revenue. If we were off on these lines, we could potentially raise the dump sticker line. That one.
The 355 is what we should get back to from the state for the security grant? I mean, if we could account for that, we'd be fine.
Yeah, if we put that in, we're fine.
But where would we put it in?
Well, there is, I think we do have a line under here that if I unhide,
Throw 22, oh, well, it can go,
it's,
wouldn't it go on the front sheet, Mike, as a reversal of the 500 from last year?
where did I put it? Well, so,
Or is it being pulled in?
you know,
Because it's, you,
it's in here. See, we've got these lines we haven't used in the past,
Correct, 98,000.
where we put in anticipated returns from the different departments. And then you could imagine a new line in here,
And what's the predicted give back this
where it
year?
was, anticipated returns from state.
200.
I wouldn't put it within the document, I'd put it as an asterisk at the bottom. We anticipate a reimbursement of
With it-
351.
We're in the same boat next year.
So here's my thing. If we take it from this year, it's not there next year. And so we're kind of in that same spot this year, or we're in this
That's
spot
true,
next
you're
year.
right, yeah.
So I do not see a way to avoid the fact that things are going up in cost. I don't. If we're not happy with 3%, can we do 1.5% and think about doing that second 1.5% next year? Is that off the table for this group of
Kind of
people?
lost me, I'm sorry.
So I said, can we imagine doing a 3% cost?
Okay, over here,
A
okay.
cost over here. Can we see what a 1.5% looks like? And is this a non-negotiable?
Well, why, if we put in the $350,000, then we don't need to go through
Except we
this
don't
exercise.
have it next year. If we don't take the 350 this year, we have it next year. If we take it this year, we don't have it next year. So the problem is still
A
there.
bigger increase next year potentially is what
Correct.
he's saying, if the costs continue to go up.
We will not, and I've said this for a number of years, where we sort of continue to use larger and larger amounts from our unreserved. And if we're not cautious about how that accumulates, it's not gonna stay there. So if you look at our increases, we did have a 3.6% this year, but if you look back, we've had basically flat with an exception this year. I don't know what happened there.
That was the year that the school came in with 700 and something,
Yep, okay.
750,000 increase, a million.
Right. So this is the history of what I have, prior chairs and whatnot, I didn't have that information, but we had a 0%. The last time we did a revow, 1.33, 3.6 is our high water mark, 0.67 last year. So if we did 0.67 last year, we could see what that looks like this year, or we could see what half of inflation looks like this year. And the point that I'm getting at is that instead of 3% one year and then 0, 0, 0, 0, that we think about doing 1 or 1.5% each year, some modest amount that essentially doesn't let these two paths, here Natalie's trying to.
Natalie's just, yeah.
We've got an expense line and we've got a revenue line. And they are on different angles right now, okay? If we cut 100 grand from school, it doesn't fix the issue. If we cut 200 grand from the school, I bet we hobble the school. That's
Well,
drastic.
it's their choice to how they run their budget.
Sure. But that is a teacher or two, right?
Yeah, right.
100 grand's a teacher, so 200 grand's 2 teachers.
And you're talking about trying to build resiliency for potential changes that are beyond our control. And the last thing we want is a fragile faculty that is looking to jump ship because we are cutting positions and we're making morale go to the toilet, right?
The last thing I wanna see in our town is that people are having a struggle to do a 3.3 increase in their own
Sure.
purchases and existence and insurance and all of that. We're already suffering that, every one of us. And then to put on top of it, a higher taxes doesn't sit well with me. And I go back again, in the budget of '23, it was an increase of $381,000. An increase in the budget of '24 showed a 773, that's where your 3 is really high.
Yep.
The budget of 2025 was another increase of 445,000. Now we're going up another 426,000. That's $2,026,973 in 4 budgets increases. To me, that is just, that's not cost of living, that's just blowing it out the door. And I feel, and I have expressed this in past years, that we need to rein that back in again, because that's our bottom line next year. And then if you're gonna have increases next year, they're gonna be going up again, and we're constantly going up. There needs to be a line to moderate that.
It's 5 years.
Okay.
So Mike, I agree. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Joyce.
Okay, so Mike, I agree with you. So Jeanette, I hear what you're saying, but with inflationary factors and just comp alone, compensation across the board, if we don't do small incremental increases and try to keep it flat and keep cutting expenses, I agree that the fragileness and the morale, but what we're going to end up facing is 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, we're not going to be able to do small increases anymore. It's going to be huge. Because if we don't keep up with the pace of inflation, we're going to have a big increase down the road. So I think small little bites, taking it in small little bites, won't be as impactful. I don't think we should do 3%. But I agree with you, Mike, like 1.5.
What if we just took 189 of that 357?
Somewhere.
You said
The reimbursement?
The reimbursement. You took part of that reimbursement and put the next.
We can pass the budget as it sits and understand that we're deficit spending this year and expecting that money to come in to balance it. Sure, we could do that. It's just the same, it is pushing it's kicking the can.
Down the road.
That's the only thing. We can pass the budget however we want. And we're not actually passing the budget tonight. We are trying to firm up what we put in the public meeting, right? Which is next week. Which again, we'll have further changes even beyond that, and we don't have to have it finalized for a week or so after that, right? If we're gonna hold to the schedule. So there still is time. We're just starting to really talk about the nitty-gritty.
What could change between now and 2 weeks?
We'll get the BAA report maybe. Board of Assessment Appeals
Yeah.
may come in the next couple
Yeah,
of
I'm not sure when they meet, but yeah, and I don't see that being that significant.
It won't,
Yeah,
that
won't
last
move
year
the
wasn't
needle
that
that much,
significant
yeah.
either.
I think Angel said they have 12 or 15.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not
And
significant.
it won't make it better.
Yeah.
Right?
No, usually it
So
kind of
lower
always
down.
works the other direction, yeah. Yeah, no one comes into the BAA and says, raise my taxes, yeah.
One guy at a town meeting did though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you go back to that other chart, how much are we using out of the unencumbered fund?
1.8, last year we used 1.3.
So that's what we're short.
That's kind of what, that's
Oh, we need
the,
to use 1.8 this year to bring it to a 16.55 million?
correct. Mhm.
Okay, and that leaves us where with our unencumbered fund balance?
That
Leaves us
leaves,
189 down?
so if we start with the 3.369, which was the
Yeah.
auditor's number, and we subtract out the 10% figure, which is also a convention, so it is something we could, we could wiggle on. And then we subtract out the amount we're using to pay down the mill to 16.55, and we get a negative number. But
So if we took 189,820 out of a budget, that would leave us still with zero.
Zero on that line, it would be, yeah, if we decreased our expenditures by $189,000, this number is still zero.
And what would our unencumbered balance be at that point, our reserve fund?
Well, I mean, this number is from the auditor, it's not gonna change. But we would just have zero, right now we have negative cushion, there we would have zero cushion. Last year we had $329,000 in cushion.
All right, so that would just zero us out to just ground zero.
Well, I mean, it's better than under the ground.
Oh,
Ground above the 10%.
That is to the 10%, it's at the 10%,
So,
correct.
and
Thompson's below
arguably,
5
in the
right now,
10 in the
so.
10
What's that?
Thompson's below 5 right now, so.
Yeah, and 10%, what is our total 10% value? And if 10% is.
The 1.72.
1.7,
725.
So the number we would be at is this,
you're about 1.5, 1.4
1.5.
million, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so you're not, so you're not even, at 1.5 million, that gives the town the reserves to actually to carry on if they had to.
Right, make those.
And then you add on to that, and let's say best case scenario, the state of Connecticut issues our reimbursement checks to the tune of, and I'll go with Joy's number on that, 400,000, she said 470, let's say 400,000.
We got 350 something.
Yeah, let's go with a low number.
Yeah,
be conservative.
But say 350, that's fine, and the state holds us harmless on the ECS, so that's another 125, so that's
470 something,
Yeah.
480.
and we're in great shape.
I mean,
And we're actually in
till
good
next
shape.
year,
We're in,
okay.
we're in good shape, even at, having the 1.5 million as our reserve fund, we're in good shape with that, that's not worrisome.
That's for like 5 months or so.
Yeah,
And you get the reimbursements. in
yeah,
the
you get the
meantime.
reimbursement, then you go, and if we actually had an issue where there's an emergency, we would go into a hard spending freeze. So you would curtail, all non-essentials, and we'd sit here in the dark and, you do what you can to drive those costs down for
And you've
that
done that
period of
before.
time, yeah.
We've done that before.
So what, I'm just, thought experiment. What happens next year, we're sitting here and that number's negative 800,000.
Hard to predict out next year. Our unassigned fund balance has always held around 3.5, 3.6 million for the past few years. And and we've seemed to hold there pretty.
But we are
pretty
using
good.
increasingly large amounts of that to pay down the mill rate.
And
We used 1.3 last year, we're using 1.8 in this assumption.
And at 16 for our mill rate, we'll see how that balances out with the increased, with the new revals, but.
What do you mean by that?
In terms of how that, I'm just kind of interested to see, 16 in the new revals, if we're trying to hold everyone harmless at 16.
That's what we've got.
Yeah,
Except I actually think it's decreasing taxes for people who have property they have not either bought new or added on to.
Yeah.
And autos have gone down.
yeah,
So we lost how much? 7, 8, 9% on autos?
yes, yeah,
I forget the absolute figure.
Yeah.
But that got shifted over to well, not shifted, but in terms
You
of the
make
brand
up for it
list, it kind of
someplace else, yeah.
it took a 40-something percent, or 45, 50% increase and turned it to 40% increase or something like that. So basically, the mix of properties got shifted a bit more to residential. But that last year, the 0.67 was with the same mill rate year on year. So the difference there, Chris, what happens year on year to the grand list? Like, what changes? Is it just new properties?
It could be, new properties being added in,
Additions.
it could be addition, something that's driving up property value,
Right.
yeah.
So what I would like to make sure we observe is that this increase last year, this revenue increase, was based on essentially new value. People
Do we know
moving
how many
in, people
building
building.
permits we have?
Right. So by making it 0 here, we're essentially not capturing any of that new value this year, right? If we said nothing happened, nobody moved into town and nobody built anything, then yes, this would actually be holding harmless. But this is actually more than that. It's actually decreasing taxes for people on their property, on their homes, if they didn't add an addition or if they didn't buy a new home or something like that. And we did the same, hold on 1 second. We did the same thing in the last time we did a reval. Look at that 0% up there. That's the same thing we did 4 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever that happens to be. And I said the same thing at that time, and I'm saying the same thing now, and it's still true. I'm okay doing it, I just want us to understand where we're driving to, okay?
Those big increases that are right in that chart right there, they follow those. That's the problem. You see that 0%, and then there's the 1.33 and the 3.6.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, if you
No.
take this, you said, well, what if we normalize these increases, it might be 1% a year? And what if instead of reacting, what if we just said, look, we're gonna start from a 1%, which is below inflation. And yes, people are on fixed incomes, however, the Social Security Administration does yearly increases. So the people who are on Social Security are getting cost of living increases. You made the point that people who are toiling can't call their boss and ask for more money. So we're kind of on a fixed income at the same point as well. So everyone is dealing with this. We can't imagine it away.
I'm not joking here.
So we can propose cuts and we can talk about cuts and we can, but we're not gonna outrun it because you wanna cut to zero? You want to cut 400 grand for their budget? Maybe. But that is also not something that we can operate schools with. We can't hold zero every year. Chris, you've been, I don't know, lucky or made a deal with the devil?
Skillful.
Whatever.
Yeah,
But I think from our perspective, we've been fortunate that that's been the case. But something could have opened up over there, right? Something with the fire department, something with
you
EMS,
never know.
something with the trash.
At the end of the day, there's any number of unknowns
Right.
that can come back and bite you in the bum. Our key here, and my takeaway on this is to make sure that we're impacting the residents the least amount possible, be able to provide the services we need, but also to have the money that we need in the bank just in case. And I think you guys have done a good job with that over the past few years. All the boards and commissions have worked together.
That definitely, I think
together
the
on
boards
that.
have done
And
pretty good.
we're in a good position, understanding your long-term, where you're looking at in terms of building that up over time, so you're not facing that. That's good. I think that sometimes works better once you get past the reval year, because the reval year is like
Yes.
it's like a boa constrictor swallowing a pig. You gotta kind of move that through, because that sort of changes the whole metric. So once you get that through, then you can take a look at, say, a long-term plan where you are trying to evaluate taxation,
Oh, you know why it's
to build that up.
3.6? It's here on line 6. 3.6 because the reval went up 3.6. The grand list went up 3.6. And so when we said, oh, we're keeping the mill rate the same, but that increases revenue by 3.6. So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what you're getting at,
Yeah,
is that we're not picking up the quarters and pennies from the increase that's kind of inherent in the grand list by restricting it back down to zero. We don't know what it was. I wonder if there is some form of analysis that could say, I think there is on the letter how many total records or new files, but we don't know what the value is of things that are on the grand list now that weren't
Right.
on the grand list before.
right, you'd have to break it down by individual
Right.
properties, and that's cumbersome. We'll put Angel on that, and she'll
There's a
she'll
lot
pull
of new
together all
building
this.
though. There's a lot.
Yeah,
We have a lot of new families moving in.
so,
Would the board entertain an increase to the 16.55 at all? I know. From this 16.5 to something higher, Joy, you've said you're not in favor of 3.
No, I think that's too high, but I think we need to incrementally increase it so we're not stuck with a 3 or 5% increase 3 years from now.
Can I put a number on here just to see what it looks like?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a person whose assessment went up, if you go anywhere off of 16.55, they're going up more.
I mean, certain properties are gonna go up different related to others, but on average, if you didn't do anything to your
If you're coming
property
down from 23.
and the mill rate goes to 16.55,
Put it all as
I'd have to
assessment.
check me on this.
I'll check you on it right now,
But-
because what they do is they
You're
go
zeroing
by
it out, though.
Yes.
comprehensive
Your
resale
taxes
value
might
within
go
the
up a
town.
little, but
They don't go by whether you could do nothing.
No,
to
on
your
a reval
property.
year, they definitely reset everything.
Right, because you could do nothing to your property and
Sure.
still go up in your assessed value.
Right, right. Let's
So
say
it's
that,
not way.
let's say that there's a home that's worth 100 grand this year and mill rate is 20, next year's worth 200,000 and mill rate is 10. That's zero, right? They'll pay the same.
Yeah.
And that's how we're budgeting this. But what's actually happened is you have a house that's worth 100 grand and no other houses, and then next year you have a house that's worth 200 grand and another house that's worth 200 grand because it was built. And now if you do 10, or now you don't need to do 10, now you can do 7.5. Well, that person whose house doubled, their mill rate dropped by more than that. They're gonna be paying less. Now this is, I'm doing this kind of, not even back of the envelope, but sort of back of the brain. And I'm saying that if there were no properties built in town and no additional improvements to those properties, even what you're saying, which is to use those comps and to come up with, I mean, the grand list shot up, what, 50%
Yeah,
close?
about
40%.
something percent, yeah.
That the mill rate is coming down by 40%, right? And so if there's nothing new, then your taxes are the same. But the minute you sprinkle in a few new things, and there's been quite a few new things, the actuals are gonna be lower. Now, that is not to say that your particular type of house might have been more desirable in the mix and might have a slightly different path through that reval, but on average, the pool is larger, and if we keep the mill rate where the revenue is zero, more or less, we've gotten it down to 0.06, then we're lowering it for people who were already here. I hope I'm not just going in circles,
No,
but
I understand what you're saying.
do you concede that, or do you dispute what I'm saying?
I can see a bigger pool bringing down everybody's average lower, but it doesn't mean that it's equal for everybody.
Absolutely. I will agree that there are
And
variances.
even
Always
if you
winners and
did
losers.
nothing with your
It's never
property.
gonna be equal.
Right, so, yeah.
I mean, the big winners are people with collectible cars down in Greenwich who had
Oh, don't even go
$250,000
there.
cars that are now like depreciated down to 10% or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how that piece of legislation works. So, yeah, but,
We might have had some of them, who knows?
oh, there's a few in town,
No,
I'm
there
sure.
are a few
yeah.
in town.
So, okay, let me go through the exercise. Let's put in a 1.5% or close to and see where that goes. And Joy, I'm not saying you're gonna agree to this, I just wanna see what it does for our numbers. Let's see, so we had 17.1, so let's do 16.8. 16 point. By the way, before we, before this spreadsheet, we didn't actually have the ability to do this type of things, right? It was very hard. This spreadsheet allows us to sort of see these things, these different tabs, this tab particularly. So that raises $157,000 with a 1.51% revenue increase, which wipes out most of that. Now, what I see there is that it wipes it out this year, but we also have that 1.5% kind of baked in for next year, which helps us, right? So that next year we don't have to look at a 3% or some other cuts that we may not want to do. Now, just seeing the change that occurred here and knowing that the mill rate, let's just review, in this scenario goes from 16.55 to 16.79, which is well, it's hard to say, but it's still a 27% decrease. Of course, values are up, so it's hard to know exactly. That it basically wipes that out. Is this a non-negotiable? This type of change?
So you're increasing the mill rate by 0.24?
Whatever that happens.
No, we're actually decreasing it, but less than to ground zero.
Well, let's call it an increase over 16.55. So it'd be 2.24.
Here's the mental exercise. You go home, take out your new assessment, do the math on the back of it as to what, and then you
I mean, you could.
yeah.
People who got their assessments letters, they could run these
Yeah,
numbers.
and you can kind of play with that number yourself at home, based upon mill
Mine
rate
went
and
up
what
over
the,
$500,000.
what the value would be. It gives you an idea
Did you
what
look at
a ratepayer would be facing. Call your husband.
So we get
Shouldn't work out.
38,000, how many ambulance rides is that?
Yeah.
About 60 grand.
Yeah.
Still nothing, so
Yeah.
can't do anything.
So if we,
Break the
so
lawn.
with the increase of 16.79, with the increase of 1.5%, we're $38,000 short.
What was it, 38, I think? 38. which, you know, makes me feel better because it's slowing
Right.
that, it's putting dirt back in the hole.
That doesn't even move the needle, and when,
You're saying it's not moving the needle?
no, 38, no,
No, okay, okay.
38,000
So you're
doesn't
saying
move the
this is
needle.
hardly anything to worry
Yeah,
about
that's hardly
versus the
anything to
one.
worry about,
So
right.
what I see is that we are hedging a little bit.
Yeah.
Because next year, if everything is rosy, we'll either keep or decrease. We're never gonna look at something and just take extra money in.
Yeah.
So if we took $38,272 from the Board of Ed budget,
Then
it'd
zero.
be zero,
Sure. Based on these
and
assumptions.
everybody would pay something.
I don't think it's enough. I would make a motion to.
Hold on, are we to this point? Because what I wanna do before we do that, I don't wanna stop you at all.
Okay.
I want to reach consensus on what mill rate assumption we wanna use, because I think that will
Next time, just
drive
don't take anything
whatever
off.
numbers you may wanna
That's, I mean, we
request
can
or
play that
recommend,
game,
what those numbers
and we can
should
also
be.
spend
Do you
the
wanna
70
take
grand.
2 minutes and revisit some of those revenue numbers aside
I
from the
mean,
CCM ones?
just
to make sure
pre-purchase
those
for
are all
next year.
dialed in where we
I
want
thought we
them.
had some big numbers we were waiting on.
We need that, or do the 2% set
I
aside.
thought there was more highlights than just three on the sheets.
They're down below, so the special ed is right. I don't know what telephone access,
Telephone access this year, we already, I think, taken in 32, but that
32 what?
thousand.
You can play
telephone
whatever
access?
game they want.
Wait a minute, glass.
And then
That's
there are,
special ed.
there are ones down here as well, planning and zoning, 1,000, ad revenue 400, dump stickers 30 grand, I think that number was higher.
We sell, that's a good figure to bring up. Last year, so I double checked with Joanne, last year, we sold 1,700 at 30, so let's say we sell 1,700 at 35, although could be a bit higher, fee could go up, but let's say 1,700 at
That's
35.
59 and a half grand.
Yeah, so what number did we dial in there? We put in 30, so you could bump that up, because we do about 1,700 dump stickers. I think.
1,700 times, and the current fee is 35,
Yeah,
it's 59 and a half,
yeah,
8,000.
yeah, so, if you added
Have you
10,000
had-
more to that, you'd
Have you
be-
had a couple of years where that number's been pretty good?
We do about the same, yeah, each year.
Because then
So
that's
put
more
50
reliable.
there.
Yeah, so to bump it up, yeah, call it 50.
Consensus on changing dump
Well,
sticker
the dump
line to
stickers this
50.
year, through June, I guess this is July 24 to 25. Yeah, that would be this one. We've only taken in 87,
87,
But,
we've
100?
budgeted 8,
but,
Yeah.
yeah, we moved, but we're on the annual sticker,
right?
so it's gonna be each year.
Starting now, isn't it?
Yeah, each year, so we have, and it's now, so we're actually selling them now, so what we're collecting now doesn't reflect.
It's half-half.
But next May we'll be collecting, so it's at the end of the fiscal year, we'll be collecting that.
Okay, at the end of the fiscal year, the previous one, when it was through June of 2024, we collected 44 grand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we do
Not
44 then? Or do you want to go?
But we
I
raised,
thought
but we
40.
raised it to 35 from $30.
At one point, you also went yearly. It used to
Yeah.
be 2 years for
Yeah,
like
but you
40
still
or
have
something.
6 months that it's at 30.
No.
No?
No, it's
It's
35
April.
now, it's 35 now, and God knows by the time we actually set it again next year, it could,
So we have
Maybe
4 months
change.
at 30.
This is a lever because, I mean, frankly, it's a bargain.
yeah, so call it 35, and you bump it up to 40, we put it at 30, you can bump it up to 40, 45, and you'll be there.
Very good. Well,
We got 50 here. We're just driving this by consensus. I got a 50 here.
0.35.
You're not comfortable with 50?
I'm not-
we already getting 40 and 59,000? Do 40, I'd be happy with
40?
that. That's
40.
fine.
40, okay. Which, I mean, drops this by 10
Yeah,
to 28.
You
Okay,
can take off your highlighter off of that one. See
okay.
what other ones
So
you
let's do, gotta remember where these thing. Whoops. Oh, there it is. Oh, wait,
I gotta get no fill.
I gotta click. We got this
Yeah, yeah,
tuition revenue. I think you all provided that number, 19,160.
Correct.
And then, I mean, these,
And the ECS, we don't know. We won't know probably till after budget season.
the what?
The hold harmless on the ECS.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I don't think we're willing to change this based on that.
No, you should, yeah.
I mean, if ECS comes back, you get that money, right?
No, you guys get that money.
ECS comes to the town. That's probably about the I mean, you know, Chris, if you wanna speak to any of these other
No, those are just.
investment interest and permits,
Yeah, no, I mean, well, investment interest, we put down is significant.
we dropped it.
Significant, and, you know,
Although we did increase permits. I will say this too,
What did
if we're wrong 25 grand, it comes out in the audit
right,
in a year and a half.
yeah. What did we generate, and Lori gave you those numbers from a week ago or so, what have we generated so far year to date in fiscal year to date in investment income?
Do you have that?
What
Jeanette?
number is it?
4201 on here, investment interest?
It was a lot more than what we have in the sheet.
Yeah. Cause we're always a little bit conservative on that, but
It's not
you're
yellow.
sitting on $1 million.
It wasn't yellow, cause we were plugging in a number. So,
You're
but we
sitting
can
on
still-
$1.5 million at 4%, that's 40 plus another half,
And they're
of that,
gonna
that's
hold the,
60 grand a
rate,
year.
right?
Huh?
The latest is there's
The
no
rates-
imminent change.
No, not really, you know, it's,
But
you know,
that number we use, Joy did a calculation based on what she feels that the interest rates will
Investment
change.
interest.
I'm not
It was very conservative because we have no idea what's going to happen. But I mean, I would feel comfortable bumping it up. I was looking for what you are at year to date, Chris. Now,
The interest, on the most recent one, she said July 24th to 25, so I guess it goes through April 9th.
yeah,
We budgeted 75,
Last year.
right, and we, have received 255.
Holy moly.
okay, yeah.
yeah,
Even if we were to bump that up to, because we have expended some funds, but we're still sitting on $1 million, we've just got money coming, you could probably bump that up or bump it back up to 75 where it was the prior year. And,
Well, that's,
Listen, if our investments drop.
but then you also
something
factor that,
Under 75, we're gonna have we'll be hurting a lot more than that.
I
Gonna be
mean,
much bigger concerns.
We'll be
Those
talking about other
investments
things.
are those safe ones. the-
yeah,
the bonds
we
and
do CDs, we have essentially, I'll call it a sweep account, but it's a different term for it, where they shop the money out on a daily basis to get the highest
But it's
interest
not a
rate.
volatile stock market.
No, we can't put our money in that, they don't let me do that
Cause
yet.
that's down like 20% or
no,
something.
you shut it down on that, didn't we?
They don't let me do that, but, you take all the fun out of it.
Overall, it's a-
But if you were to put that back to 75, if you were to put that back to 75, which is
If the
the
board
same as
wants
this
me to
year,
change it
yeah.
back to 75, we can
put
change
that
it back to
I'll put it
75.
back to 75. Just based on what we're seeing, what you're saying that we've dropped.
We are whittling away.
And we'll
Now we're
keep-
at 3 grand.
We'll keep Lori working hard on that. She actually takes great pride in getting the most money that she can for the town by doing nothing.
Does really well.
Yeah.
So what we've done, just to recap, is we are, at the moment, putting in a 1.5% increase on revenue with a 0.24 increase from baseline on the mill rate.
Go back to 16.55 and see.
Well,
what
then we
that-
shoot all the gains we have.
No, I know, but I just wanna see what the deficit would be.
Oops, I did the wrong thing. Paste. I don't know what I did.
I did.
Escape. 15, wait, no, 16. Y'all gonna have to remember what we,
5.5.
16.55.
I know that one. I'll have to remember what we put it to. So then we're kind of back in that issue, which I see as the sort of
Oh, it
structural
throws
issue.
it right back up there, even though we changed the revenues?
Correct, because the revenue is small. I mean, the mill rate is actually a very large dial, very sensitive dial. The copier fees are not.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing that would really shift that would be if we went with the, house budget on the ECS, which is 125, then you'd see.
And
a
I can't
difference on
remember,
that,
I mean,
but
I guess we'll see it.
That's a-
What did we
that's a
say
crapshoot.
last year? Last year, I think we had the 4 million. So by this time last year, we must have gotten,
Yeah, they had come out
we
with the
must have already,
actual.
well, no, it's this one. We must have already gotten it.
Yeah, they're doing the usual, and I find that from my perspective, doing this job and trying to deal with the state house, that they do not make it easy for municipalities to actually conduct their business in an intelligent manner. And
I
you
mean,
can
there's
put that
talk
in
of
the minutes, George.
Maybe
That's
trying to
fine.
fix special ed as well for future
Yeah.
years.
So there's major talks on at least 4 different fronts about special ed funding.
Yeah,
Because that's a huge,
Yeah,
huge risk and a burden. Things could move very quickly.
And every part of, Chris is 100% right, because every ECS cut and not hold harmless is in Eastern Connecticut, you know,
Yeah, every year, yeah.
every year, the forgotten Connecticut.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I noticed off topic, but they were just giving out some grant money, they dumped some on Western, like the equivalent of our, East Con. Yeah, they gave some to West Con
Westcon.
and then down to, New London, yeah.
Yeah, Learn and, Advance,
Yeah.
yep. So northwest corner in New London.
Yeah. And we're stuck holding our can, looking for pennies.
Pick up those nippers.
Yeah, gotta pick up
Can
cans
I-
and bottles.
Can I put this back to the 0.24 off number?
Well,
Yeah.
try it at
We got
16,
consensus here, 16.55,
1678, right, is what it was?
was it 16.70?
I'll go 16.75, see what that does. Does that make a difference?
Well, I mean, it changes numbers, yes, but it makes us 50 grand. or more.
Okay.
So
Then
let
I'll
me,
make a motion.
hold on, let me, what was the number we started, we had?
16.55 as you started.
No, the one that was the 1.5.
Must've been 1678.
16.8,
7.9,
16.79, 16.8.
We'll say 7. I think that's 2.4, it was 2.4.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
That's different.
Is that different, what we do?
What was an 8? Uh-oh.
Yeah, cause you were down to like $3 grand.
Yeah.
Let's check what we got.
Did one of those
Did
changes
I,
not
Yeah,
say?
we did.
Yeah.
We didn't.
that's
maybe
what-
I didn't, maybe I undid, I think I
Yeah.
hit undo instead,
Okay.
so we gotta do 75 grand here.
no, wait a minute, you put the permit at 75?
That we did go up with last week.
Yeah.
Okay, we did.
Yeah, cause we had a big bump up in those.
So now we're at a 3 grand deficit above the 10%. Is
Which is essentially flat.
0.
Yeah.
I mean, from that perspective, whether or not you still wanna make cuts, that's
I do.
another question. So can we get consensus on, at least from the expense sheet, this thing, of using a 16.79 assumed mill rate?
Yeah. Oh,
Everything is always up for change up until, we vote to move the budget to town meeting.
So
Ends
why
next
do we
week.
need a consensus right now?
Because we wanna approve this worksheet for for the public hearing next week. If
But-
you, if we will at some point say, is this budget approved for the town, for the public hearing? Is this worksheet approved for the public hearing? At that point, you're approving 16.7.
But if we make cuts, then the worksheet changes before
It
we
could.
get to that.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
Sounds
And
good to
those
me.
changes could happen.
So let's not do cart before the horse, why get?
That's why I'm
this-
asking for consensus right
Yeah,
now and
but
not
why-
asking for a
But
vote.
if a consensus is an agreement to it,
Oh, I'm just saying, can we go with
So
this
if we
as a
have a
number?
vote right now, how many people will approve it? How many of us would agree to it? That's what you're saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
to use this as a
So we
as
don't
a
have
number.
25 votes.
We're gonna get, if you don't have consensus, we can vote, but I don't really wanna lock this mill rate in just yet.
Before we vote on this consensus, do you want to make a motion to cut more?
But I don't want to make those cuts without consensus on this number.
why?
Okay, consensus doesn't mean we can't change it later. If you're gonna make cuts, I want it to be from a point of consensus, not from a point where we don't even know what our
But
mill
why
rate is.
can't we make the, point of consensus 16.55?
I don't think there's consensus on 16.55. Is there consensus? I don't wanna do 16.55.
I don't want to do 16.55 either.
No, I'll do 16.7.
So I think we've got, at least 3 of us are saying we're leaning to 16.79. I mean, I'll be honest, if you wanna fight this out, we can fight it out, but I don't think we need to. I think we can just table consensus right now and look at the other side and you can discuss your cuts or whatever. Sorry, Rob.
Rob, you wanna move over?
Board of Finance member blinded.
In heated budget discussion.
I'm trying to.
Well, you've got your votes, I'm gonna
Stick-
say no, so.
He's trying to threaten you so you vote. But
Not at all.
wait.
There's some levers here, and I'm trying to say, can we stick this lever here while we talk about this other lever? Because if we start talking about all the levers, we don't really know what we're doing. So,
But I just think the other lever should have been done first before you talk mill rate to move forward to a meeting.
sure, sure, that's fine, and whenever you can try to be chair and you can run the meetings.
No, I'm just.
But I
voicing
think
my-
we should know what our revenue is,
I'm just
and we should
voicing
know what our
my
expenses
opinion
are.
too, Mike.
100%, but I think we need to have a basic idea of what our revenue is before we can say, can we afford something or not? And I'm hearing a board that has,
But how are you saying this is our revenue if you've gone up with your mill rate?
say that again?
You're saying this is to lock in our revenue?
I'm not locking anything in.
No, but you're saying, you just said this is to.
For consensus perspective, so that when we look at the expense sheet, you can say, hey, there's a number, if we go with this mill rate, that's a number. Here's an expense number, here's a difference, or it informs, if you're telling me it doesn't have any effect on what cuts you might make, is that what you're telling me? You don't care what our revenue looks like?
You can agree on a target.
Well, don't say that.
Well, no, I'm saying, so if I made it 16.55 and the number, and the deficit was bigger, would you want to cut more?
I don't know.
Just pretend it's 16.55 then. And make your bigger suggestion for cuts, okay? Can we, as a table?
If you need to make a consensus on 16.79, call that consensus, get your votes, and we can move on.
A consensus is not a vote.
We just need a baseline.
We just need a baseline.
A target.
Yeah.
And if we make a vote to do 16.79, I'm not even sure that's the right number. We may want to change that number. I just want to get a consensus to look at the other sheet and to say, here's what we think our revenue is based on that assumption. Here's what we think our expenses are based on the budgets.
Can I make a motion that we vote on approving 16.79 as a baseline for any further debate on the budget?
Okay, I'll second that. Matt has a motion to approve 16.79 as a mill rate assumption for baseline discussion for the.
Baseline for discussions going forward.
Yep. This is not a mill rate per se, it's just a mill rate for assumption.
Just for discussion.
Motion is to peg the mill rate for discussion at 16.79. Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed?
I'm gonna abstain. For
One abstention.
befuddlement reasons,
For what?
because I'm befuddled in what you're doing, so.
Okay, all right, now we've got our revenue assumption in place. Our expenses are all the budgets added up. We've got 1.64 coming out of. Jason, you want to join?
Sure.
Joy, can you note that Jason is joining at 8 o'clock? 3.36, so we have a negative net fund balance of $3,272. Any other additions, changes, or questions from the board?
Could we just add that 3272 to the investment?
We can change whatever we want to change.
Because we got 200 something thousand last year. We put 75,000 in. It's not. What was the line?
Well, what do you want to change?
The investment line.
I'm asking Matt, thank you. Matt, what line do you want to change?
The investment line. The investment. 4201.
No.
This line.
Yeah.
Matt, I agree with you. I just don't think it's gonna make a difference if we get the money back from the state. We're gonna be back with a surplus over the 10% of 300 grand.
I know, but I'm just saying, get rid of that $3,200 so there's no red.
So for the sheet itself? Okay.
Huh?
Yeah, I said for the sheet
Correct.
itself. Yeah, okay.
So what do you want to go up to, Matt?
Literally add this.
78,500, whatever it is.
Well, you could also go higher and then assume
could,
that
but we don't need to go
change the mill
higher.
rate.
We don't need to go higher. I'm comfortable with, we've increased it 25. Well, we kept it last year.
We actually did increase, because we had decreased
Yeah,
and then we
we
put it back to
decreased
where
and
it
put
was.
it back.
And we've taken in 225.
So 75.
Was that a year to date
78,272.
at the end of this year? Or was that end of the year last year?
That's currents. That was
That's
by
through
April 9th.
April 9th,
We've already taken in 200,000.
70 what?
255,000.
Oh, wow.
We're good at doing something around here.
70, what were you, what was the
What if we
number?
up it to 100?
What did you say, Matt?
What would be up to 100. It's not
Oh, I
gonna-
thought you said 200. I was
No,
gonna say,
no, no.
yeah.
No.
No. I mean, yeah, 100. I mean, if you're, Chris, if you got $1 million that you're sitting on, even if the rates go down and they go down slower, there's like a 3-month lag when they reduce on the returns. So even if it went down, you're still gonna clear at least 100 grand.
Still gonna clear, and we're, yeah, and we're constantly, we're taking money in through the revenue process, we're always adding to that
Yeah, you're gonna have a great
unassigned
time.
pool, yeah.
Right.
You wanna
I'd
change
go
it to?
100.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion 42.
But-
Go on.
Also, just to point out, this is by consensus, Jenna, right? We're not making a motion here, we're just kind of going as a group.
Well, like we have with the whole thing so far.
Right, except the mill rate, apparently.
Well, now let's see what it does for the
Okay.
village.
Mill rate's been, set for the point, for the point of the expense sheet. So here's where
Yes.
we are right now.
Okay, we have surplus.
So, yes, I mean, it does solve the red line issue on this front sheet. Are there other changes, additions, requests that the board would like to make? And this is again for approval of what we're going to present at the public hearing next week. Which is in some ways informs what we'll send to town meeting, so
Are you talking about changes to the revenue sheet?
anything. So expense revenue, I mean,
Okay,
revenue, I suppose you
so-
could make changes to revenue, but I thought you might want to make some proposed changes to the budgets.
Okay, so that 21,728. Go back to the revenue,
21,
the other
7
sheet,
to 8.
right, that's what you have as the net fund balance.
You want to go back to revenue,
Yup.
okay?
No, go back to the,
Tax,
that one. No, what is it if you drop like 0.5?
I'm sorry, I can't drop it.
1679?
I can't drop it.
It's just for calculation purposes.
Except it's been, we've made a motion and we said it. I don't mean to be a stickler here, Jeanette, but that was why I didn't want to make that motion.
And I didn't, you seconded it.
Yeah, because
Okay, well, $3,000 is gonna, which was it, 23,000,
21.
21,000, 20, it's gonna.
So just for
16.76.
all along here, you've been doing calculations so we could see what the effect would have, but now
Yes.
you won't do the calculations.
we
to
made
see-
a motion and the board voted to set that number for the point of working through the revenue. I suppose you can make another motion to change that and we can see what happens, but this is gonna delay the whole thing and make it a lot more complicated, which is why I didn't want to make a motion. I just wanted to go by consensus while we were putting this worksheet together.
And you seconded the motion.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't understand with the conversation happening, you can't use your spreadsheet that magic can change all these numbers, so we can't just do it.
That's
It's just
what,
for conversational
that's
purposes.
what we were doing.
Until you guys changed that.
I think you asked us, you
No, I
said we
didn't.
couldn't reach consensus.
No, I said I will vote.
Everybody here was
I
was
said
witness to the
I
fact
will-
that you couldn't reach
I
consensus
said
with us.
I would vote my way, and if you had your consensus, you can move on. Matt, Mike, I'm not trying to argue, I just wanna see, you have 21 grand,
So it's $21,000, what will 21,000 out of 157,000, 10 is 15, it'll change to 16.76.
that's what I'm asking, where would that increment mathematically be with the changes that we've made in our revenue to be that zero that you're trying to stay at?
So you want to, okay, so you want to get this down to zero. This, you want to save $21 additional thousand out of the
Yeah.
mill rate increase. Okay.
Cause it's all mathematical.
This is a tricky spot you put me in, Jeanette, because we've made a motion to set this to
Okay, I make a
16.7.
motion that we plug in 21,000 to see what the mill rate will drop down to,
Well, hold on one sec, because that made, you,
just as an exercise. Or we can just keep going. I mean, it's gonna be minuscule.
um,
But
I'm
every
trying to
one
think
is
how we
an
can best do this.
exponential of cost to a person. And you started your conversations, Matt, by saying you don't wanna see
I
taxes.
do a lot of things I don't want,
right.
What's that?
nothing.
Uh, Look, can I make a motion? I don't know, this seems very odd. I'm gonna make a motion to sort of unlock the mill rate. And so we can go back to working with the mill rate under consensus.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Matt
I'll second.
seconded that. All in favor, or any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you. So, you wanna see if we drop this and try to get, we'll have to go back and forth. Whoops.
Yeah.
We'll go back and forth to try to get this as close to zero, but not going negative, I
Correct.
presume.
Right.
And let's do, what'd you say, 16.76? We'll see where that goes. We're getting closer. 16.75. So it's probably 7.6.
You were right.
Who did that? Who did that?
A broken clock is right twice.
He's a savant.
And we had, what did we have, 7.9?
Yeah, 7.9.
Now we're doing a 0.21 up from 16.55.
1.33% increase.
Total revenue 1.33%, yeah. Which matches what we got this year when we lowered the mill rate.
What are we doing? I'm confused.
So we adjusted a few revenue lines, which made our number go positive. And,
Right.
And the request was to lower the mill rate to get that, the excess down lower, to basically try to zero in on that net fund balance of zero. Which I don't know if that's the right thing to be zeroing in on, but it's better that it's not negative. So I'm good with it not being negative. And I'll acknowledge that there's some concession here, at least by consensus at the moment, for a 1.33% increase on the revenue side, on the tax side, with a 16.76 mill rate. Before we get to any more suggested changes to budgets or whatever, are we good on all of the assumptions as in a consensus way?
So we're okay with, at this point, sending this, this is what we would send to the town to vote.
Not just yet. This is what if we approve this, it's for me to plug in all these numbers for the public hearing next
Okay.
Tuesday.
Oh, it's public hearing, and then, okay.
Which is Tuesday, we have a meeting Wednesday, we could possibly act to send it that Wednesday, I think we also have time the next Wednesday. If we have another week after that, it's probably delays some of the actions that you might need to take, Chris. Do you wanna make any,
Is this to the budgets as a whole?
yeah.
Yes. Chris, thank you. Your budget's a negative. CIP is a negative. That's working with the town with the money that, in recognition of what people have. The school's gone up $460,000. To me, that's outrageous. If we're pulling pennies out of this, I think that the school needs to adjust their standard as well. Smile all you want, but that's my position, sir.
I'm not smiling. Chris, did we work with you to cut 128 off CIP? Yeah. So we cut 128 from our end off the CIP, so we are working with the town.
Well,
So-
that's not a matter of cutting off, that's a matter of budgeting too.
It's a matter of,
What did you cut off?
we cut off all the improvements that we did on our end out of our budget so that the town could have a leaner budget. So I'm just saying, like, I get the heartache of the way Connecticut funds education on the back taxpayers, and I agree it's not fair, but we also did our part so far up to the tune of 128 grand, cutting that piece.
Okay, so you just said that you did some things that were in CIP, but you took them out of your budget?
We either did them in-house or we found grants or other ways to do it, so.
Okay, but that's not.
So that's
how
why
it's-
that CIP is 128 lower than it
So
should be.
that list of things was,
Yeah,
the-
cut by 128, correct.
okay.
Yeah.
Cutting 128 because you don't need it, because you did it in-house, correct?
No, we did it because 91% of my budget is fixed on salaries, benefits, and tuition, high school tuition, outplaced tuition. So I can't cut out of that 91% without dramatic effect to students. So where I cut where I could cut, which is on the CIP side, which is the town side, or we did it ourselves out of our budget, out of that remaining 8.2%.
So things that were in CIP.
Yep.
you took care of with some of the in-house.
Correct, so the CIP
Okay.
budget is lower.
There's a problem there. So did the money in the CIP, that the line you had put aside for CIP,
Yeah.
but you did it in-house, where's that money? Is it still in CIP sitting there accumulating?
No, it's 98 back.
And dead money, we gave back 27,442 back to the town for dead money that had been sitting there.
Correct.
Is that the
How-
the amounts we
Reallocated.
swept up?
Yeah.
But it's only, it was only 43 grand that went down, wasn't it?
43 was reallocated, that was a combination of projects that were no longer needed between the town and the school. So that was like things like the oil tank up at the school, and there's some money left over. And I think the biggest one on the town side was a chipper.
So, so that.
The rest was grant money that we covered from external funding resources.
I got CIP. So you're saying you gave back 120?
I'm saying we pulled 128 off of that CIP line that we either got done through other things or external funding or covered in-house. So I appreciate, you know, the sentiment, but we are trying to work with the town the best we can.
Okay, but I'm still not clear.
Yep.
If you had a line item in CIP, 10
Correct.
grand
Yep,
for yellow markers, whatever.
yep,
And you said you took care of that with the school budget money because you were being economically feasible and you
Correct.
took care of it.
Correct.
That money is still sitting there in CIP,
You're talking about this year's requests.
correct,
Yeah, correct.
but you took away,
128.
That's new requests, I think you're saying, or reductions from the
Reductions is
original
100%.
We took
request.
projects off that we were not planning to.
I mean, CIP is
Either-
down.
so
either
there's
the-
no
year on year.
accumulated money in any of those lines that you took off.
Correct,
So essentially, the request for funding dropped from last year's appropriated amount of 343,000 to, and a request for funding of 284. So there was a drop in that request for funding. The total CIP budget was down a little bit from last year. We reallocated a certain amount of funds, 43,000 from projects that were, closed.
But this is saying, I told you were, the school went down $59,000 this year in CIP.
Okay.
What's the 120?
that's what we pulled off the table that were our projects on that list.
Okay, but pulling off future isn't,
If he reallocates, what I'm saying, from we gave. So, listen, if you want me to cut, I just need a number that you want me to cut.
okay,
Cause 91.2%, you are an anomaly in that your enrollment is going up and I have to staff the school, you know? So I'm right at inflation line. I can cut teachers, there's gonna, we're gonna be at a detriment to do that. 100 grand's a teacher, 50 grand's a para, 25 grand is half a para. Cause that's the only thing I can cut is people at this point.
well, that's, I don't agree with that statement. But, I would make a motion then, to cut 50 grand. You've got to, the school has got to give too. So I would make a motion to cut 50 grand.
Jeanette makes a motion, 50 grand, do we have a second?
Just don't.
Can you repeat that, please?
Motion from Jeanette is to cut 50 grand from the education budget.
Bearing in mind that they've gone up $467,000.
I'll second the motion.
Rob seconded.
Thank you, Rob.
Motion is 50 grand off the EDU budget, open for discussion.
I just think that it's gotta be a breaking point. And again, I go back to that over $2 million in 4 budget cycles. We keep saying it's 5 years, but it's not. It's the budget of 23, 24, 25, 26. Those total up to over $2 million.
You have the actuals in front of you for those
I went
previous-
off of the budget that you sent
Yep,
out.
those are
this year.
actuals, it says right on the top there, those are
Because
actuals.
I went with the budget that you had passed out with
Yep.
the sheets.
Yep, those
So-
are actuals on the top.
And, 50 grand is nothing. You're going up so much. It's gotta be a point where you just say, stop.
We have the fourth lowest budget in this proposal in the state.
I'm sorry?
We have the fourth lowest
I
budget.
am not concerned about anybody
Okay.
else in this state, about Killingly or Putnam. I'm
Okay.
concerned about our town, based on our demographic, our people.
Okay.
Any other comments, discussion?
Gotta stop.
All right, I'll call the vote. Motion is to cut 50,000 from the Board of Ed budget. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say
No.
nay. Nay?
Nay.
Nay.
No abstentions. 2 to 4. Back to discuss and
tried.
finalize, what's that?
Let's talk about it.
Discuss and finalize budgets for public hearing. We've had a motion, failed. Are we ready to make a motion to accept this to present at the public hearing for next week? And, I'm doing this more, I mean, we will, but I'm just sort of don't wanna shortcut anyone who might wanna, make further motion or whatnot on the previous budgets. Joy, you good with us,
Yep.
So let me review where we're at. Just to make, we've got a 16.76 assumed mill rate, which is a 1.33 increase on revenue. We've adjusted our revenue lines a little bit. Our expenses, we've got the budgets as they are right now. And we're leaving our net fund balance slightly above 0. We'll entertain a motion to finalize this for the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to finalize,
Matt?
present this to the town for a town hearing.
Matt's made a motion to finalize this worksheet to put into the public hearing for next week. Do we have a second?
I've seconded it.
Rob, open for discussion.
I think we're heading down the wrong path. You talk about wanting to save our fund balance so that we never go 0, never go negative, that we build a cushion, we can keep moving forward to draw on next year. And we're not doing that with not taking something out of $426,000 increase from one budget. We took it out of the town, they're down, CIP is down. Being responsible, that's my opinion.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, motion is to, did we have a second? Second, Rob seconded it.
I seconded it.
All right, so
Yes.
we've got the motion for the worksheet to use as the basis for the public hearing next week. I do have a draft I'm gonna show you guys here in a minute. It's very familiar, so I'll move through it quickly when we get there. Motion is to accept this worksheet for presentation to the public hearing next week. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Yep, opposed.
And everybody voted, so no abstentions. Alrighty. Thank you, everyone. All right, let me move to public hearing draft prezo. It'll be familiar. I gotta find it.
Is it just plugging in the numbers from last year?
It is. But I would entertain suggestions, although, stop share. I probably won't be doing anything drastic, but I will entertain suggestions. So this is what I'm gonna be, this is the draft. It is as of April 16th, so it's not gonna include any changes from tonight. I will need to put those in.
Last time you did, you just highlighted what you needed to change and.
Absolutely, yeah. So objectives is very similar, budget focus, very similar, timeline, these are adjusted dates. The 29th is next Tuesday, the 30th is the Wednesday, and then we've got some meetings there to potentially send to town meeting. Budget bottom lines, these numbers are accurate as of last week. You can see EDU is 77% of the town budget, town is 20%, and CIP is 3%. Here's budget comparisons. Those probably are accurate because we didn't make the changes. We didn't make changes to those tonight. Overall 2.23% overall change. Budget drivers, I've taken my best guess at these. I don't know if you can see it from there, but if anything stands out, sharp eyes. And then how do we pay for this? 68% is taxes, 4% is local revenue, 28% intergovernmental revenue, with a large majority of that is ECS, 89%. Here's the ECS graph. The fiscal year 26 is down. You can actually see, I think it was 2 years ago, we also budgeted down, but they held us harmless. Last year, I think they had got their act together, held us harmless. So we've actually been at that 4.04 for a number of years. But you can see, just going back this is now 10 years, ECS has dropped 700 grand. It was pretty significant. So the state support of local education has just bottomed out.
They had us, what other towns targeted to lose, I think we were targeted to lose about 1.6 million over a 10-year period, and they do their best to
They intended to keep that going.
Yeah, Chris's point is a lot of those, where you see a lot of these ECS cuts are towns in eastern Connecticut. I don't think in Hartford they actually understand, this part of the state that well. Their misunderstanding or misconception is that we are a wealthy, affluent towns. We are like Greenwich or like a couple towns, and they could not be more mistaken.
We're not?
No, we're not. In fact, I'll point out just because I brought my soapbox with me, I'll get on it. In terms of one of the biggest things that we've been facing that came up this year with the social issues is disconnected youth. So if you take the 16 to 24-year-olds, our region, Wyndham County, and I was speaking to Dana about this the other day, our region, Wyndham County, is the most heavily proportionately impacted region for disconnected youth, which I think is just indicative of the economic circumstances that we're in. But Hartford doesn't want to hear it. They've got their own agenda, and we pay the price.
And do you go up and lobby them and?
I push as best I can. Whenever I can, either working through cost or CCM. For a number of years, they'd see me coming, they say, oh God, it's Licky in the trees again. But we did move the needle on that a bit and change how the money that we could use to cut down trees. You do the best that you can. What you come across in Hartford with a lot of these social issues is our numbers and our demographics don't play into the Hartford playbook. So when they look, I can't change the fact that I live in a community that's 90% white, but that doesn't change the fact that we have a community with significant need. Yeah, and that's it's a tough sell to get that across in Hartford, but we do the best we can.
All right, continuing. Grand list, healthy bump this year, 39.05% overall, but I think cars were down significantly. I don't have it broken out here. I'll need to update this. These are the revenue estimates. Revenue comparisons, these will need to be updated. We have this is the total taxes, interest and liens, property tax, there's how we do the math. That's got the 16.55, but it'll be the new number. We just multiply things together to come up with the sheet. The expenses, revenue, and the balance, and we'll use the unassigned fund balance to drive that down, and then we'll have a screenshot of the worksheet, which will also be available at the, that's what goes in the paper and whatnot when the town meeting gets scheduled. I think that's it. That is it.
You folks were, I'm sorry, can I interject here? You were talking about the letter from our assessor.
Yep.
That we have added 195 new accounts for property this year.
Yeah. How many total do we have?
Real estate, 2,578 accounts.
So give me those numbers, 2,000 something, 100 something over, let's do a division here. 100 and what was the new accounts?
It says since implementing these last year, this is personal property has increased 6.373% over last year based on newly declared business property found by comparing our taxable list with the Secretary of State Office list of businesses in Canada and interest filing compliance efforts. Since implementing these last year, 195 new accounts have been added to the tax rolls. So that would be personal property, real estate, and motor vehicles.
Oh, 195 all over together.
I think that's the way I'm taking this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the total number of accounts?
Total number of accounts is 9,500.
Yeah, so, which is like 2%. So 2% new of the total grand list, 2% of the accounts renewed, I guess. make heads or tails of that, but that is what it is.
Okay, so, yeah, your cars are dropping
Yeah, what was the drop?
7.53%.
Yeah, but the overall was something like $10 million or something, right? Let me find that doc. Where do I have that? Get where I put it. Hate to make you guys sit for this.
Increase in
Here
real
it is,
estate.
here it is. This is the sheet. Oh, so we don't have the absolute drop in motor vehicles, but 7.5%,
Yeah,
which on 50 million is, I don't know, 5 million, whatever. Okay. And we do have the Quinnebog listed on the revenue sheet, but not in the not on the grand list side. Chris, was that a 10-year thing? What was the? Does it shift over at some point?
With the solar, God, yeah, you could ask me, I think it was a 10-year payment in lieu of tax program.
And
It's
then it
about-
becomes part of the grand list?
Yeah, then we'll have to figure out what's gonna happen after that, and I think it's, what is it, about 115,000 a year? give or take?
115.
Yeah,
Which, as our grand list drops, basically gives them a better deal.
oh, yeah, that's one of those things too, and, okay, I'm not gonna, I've had some towns come to me and ask me about solar, I said, the first thing you, because that project started even before I started doing this job, so we're going back 10, 12 years ago, when that first started and those deals were put in place, and the one thing I say to anyone now in a municipal position is get the best attorney you can that specializes in negotiating for municipalities on these solar programs, because I think now looking back, 12 years back, you say, geez, they left a lot of money on the table, but it is what it is.
A question to that, we're receiving money on this, or
Yeah.
are we paying out?
Oh, no, we're not paying anything, geez, God, Rob, no, we're getting money, we're getting money, yeah.
But they're not getting.
Thank
you're not
God for
collecting-
that, I
You're
was,
not collecting
there's
taxes
got a
at this
park
point.
next door to
No,
it.
we get the pilot money, yeah,
Yeah, they're not getting taxes.
yeah,
They
No.
just get a lump sum.
yeah.
Oh, I get it,
And
yeah.
then after so many years, that goes away and they have to start paying
Then
taxes.
we'll have some
Okay.
negotiation, or they'll pull up stakes and
Right.
who knows what,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we've got the solar.
I'm
Yeah,
happy.
you have it in your backyard,
I know,
yeah.
they came knocking at my door years ago. We're gonna give you $1,000 a year towards renting 10 of your acres, and I said, I don't think so.
$100 a year an acre? I don't think so.
No, 10,000 an acre, we
Yeah,
talk,
that's
yeah.
until you see the buck jumping over the,
Yeah.
I didn't want
Yeah,
that, and I need the land I have to prevent encroaching.
electric
Right.
connectors.
Oh,
It's your land.
It's walk over, they adjusted to
hopefully
it.
they don't get stuck in the machinery. All right, so we'll move to public comment, Zoom chat, let me check. I don't see any Zoom chat. Any public or board members want to add any comment?
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, appreciate everybody's hard work on this. We are to the adjournment phase. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Jeanette, with a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Matt, all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Thank you. At 8:31 on my clock, but you.
Good one.
So Tuesday.
Alrighty, thank you, everyone. Tuesday, 7 o'clock here is the public hearing.
Where the hell are you gonna put them?
You
They'll
know,
sit right in the
Rob-
front row.
But Rob,
Yes.
Rob, last year,
I think it was
besides your
just
wife,
us.
we had, I think, 2 other people.
Right.
Oh.
So this would be.
Hey, Mike, can you still hear me?
Yes,
Is it Zoom Tuesday night? Because I'm going to be in Boston.
I will have regular Zoom going as well, yep.
Okay. All right.
And
Perfect.
it's, I'll send out agendas tomorrow for next week's meetings.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Have a
Bye.
great night.
So it's